Hello, and welcome to the Global Dynasty YouTube channel. Real Housewives of New Jersey, Season 13, Episode 7. Let's get into it because we have a lot to unpack. So, the beginning scene starts out with the newbies, Danielle and Rachel. They're reflecting over the baseball game that just happened. And Rachel points out that, I saw you and Joe Gorga having a moment. What was that about? So, Danielle just went into detail and she was just sharing how her and Joe Gorga were discussing their issues with their siblings and how he was encouraging her to never give up and to keep trying. And I find it funny that Joe Gorga, of all people, could give the best sibling advice, but he doesn't use that advice with his own sibling. How does that work? And so they continue their conversation, and then they bring up the luau that's coming up because everybody's going to the shore, and they haven't been to the shore in a minute. So I'm kind of excited because the shore always brings out the best in everyone. And they discuss Margaret. She comes up, and Danielle shares her reservations towards Margaret because Margaret is known to be messy. She will go and find your deepest, darkest secret, wait to use it in front of a group of people, and then have you try to do damage control on national television. And Danielle is just sharing, like, hey, I don't know if I really want a friend like that in my circle. And Rachel is just like, well, I see her as a good person. She had hurt. And so Danielle was like, she did it with Louie and Teresa. Y'all remember when Margaret was going around spreading those rumors about Louie? She also did it with Jen and Dr. Aiden and how she brought up the whole cheating allegation rumors. Well, not that wasn't an allegation. He did cheat on her. But I find it very interesting that the new girls are kind of picking sides. Danielle, you have her with hanging out with Jen and Teresa. Then you have Rachel hanging out with Margaret and Dolores. And see, Melissa really should be on the show. I almost forgot her name, but I think it's interesting. It definitely shows the dynamic of how the show will kind of go from here on out. Even though I really think that this could be Rachel's last season, she could be a friend of. So the next scene has Jen and Teresa meeting up at a jewelry shop, and they're discussing the details of Teresa's wedding with Louis, and the topic of the shore comes up, and Teresa voices her opinion, and she's just like, "It would have been nice if my brother invited me to stay with him at the shore house instead of Margaret." And I don't find anything malicious about her making that statement because it's true. Like if everything's supposed to be cordial between you two, you say there's no problem, then why not invite your sister as an olive branch to kick it with you and your wife at the shore house? But on one hand, you want her to invite your mother-in-law to her wedding. Make it make sense. Because the same way you view Teresa is not how you want her to view you. It has to be equal. So Dolores is packing her bags and getting ready for the shore, and she's having a discussion with Polly. And he's asking her, like, are you ready? And she's like, it'll be different this time because she's used to staying at Frank's shore house, and this time she won't. And I love how Polly inserts himself like, well, he's just going to have to get over it. It's time for him to move on. And I love that for her. Dolores deserves happiness. And at this point, I don't have time for Frank's boohoo story. No one does. Like, you're not about to damp this party because Polly and Dolores are living life, and I'm happy for her. So the next scene is with Jennifer and Bill, and she's getting ready in her closet, just showing him a couple fits that she wants to wear for the luau. And they get on the topic of their marriage, and she wants to bring the therapist along during the weekend, I guess, maybe have a session while they're there. And he's saying how much he enjoyed the therapist, but you can kind of tell that Bill doesn't really want to talk about the subject. And here's what I think the problem is when it comes to Bill and Jennifer. I think the things that Jennifer wants to discuss in her marriage are legit, but her delivery is just a little harsh when it comes to Bill. And I think that his ability to be so nonchalant towards those important topics is what sends her over and causes her to react even more out of emotion. I think that they're kind of running away from the truth. When it comes to the situation that happened, Bill cheated. They decided to wipe it under the rug, and she decided that she was going to forget about it and not ask any questions. And I think her main important question is, why did he cheat? And I don't think that she's ready to ask him that because she's not ready for the answer. So until she's ready to get real with him and they actually have a discussion about why he cheated and, what was going on during the marriage that made him cheat, they're going to be in this rocky place that even when she asks him for different advice when it comes towards her friends, she's going to think that he's automatically on their side until they can get over this main issue. But I do hope that they can get over this issue because you can see how it impacts their family. And we'll take it back to the last episode when Rachel told Jennifer that her daughter came up to her and said, I want to be a therapist, a love coach. And of course, she's reacting that way because of what she sees in the home. And I think that once they get themselves together, it won't bleed over into the family and things will be back on track. But Bill and Jennifer, y'all gotta be real with each other. Period. Everyone starts to arrive to Jersey Shore, and Margaret goes to Melissa and Joe's house, Joe Gordon. She's so messy. We're gonna call her miserable, messy Marge because she felt the need to tell Melissa that her mother got an invite to Teresa's wedding, knowing that Melissa's mother wasn't invited. My thing is, Marge, if you're cool with Teresa again, why are you steady trying to burn the bridges by talking about her every second you get behind her back? But then you get mad when she says something about you and says she'd rather keep you closer than anything because you're basically an enemy in her eyes. But you've proven your point here exactly why. Because you're messy. And I called it. I knew I didn't really like Rachel for a reason. She's messy too. And just like I said she would, she did. She went ahead and told Marge her conversation with Danielle, which you don't know what loyalty is. You knew Danielle way before Marge, so why are you going back and telling what she's saying? Not cool. So now Marge is going to have some type of vendetta against Danielle because she has something to say about her. And then Marge had the nerve to call Danielle a wannabe, saying she pretends to be someone that she's not. Like, Marge, that's you all the way. Like, the mess. And it begins. Or shall I say it continues. To constantly live in a state of delusion is something I can't relate with, but Marge can very well. She thinks she's doing something by confronting Teresa, and she goes, well, if we're supposed to be cool, then why are you saying stuff about me? Like, what, Marge? You do the same thing with her. So I'm confused. Are you mad that it got back to you? Like, you can't approach someone about actions that you do yourself. That's just not how it goes. I'm sorry. Oh, but Trey gonna turn it around. She was like, Rachel, but like you being messy. Are you trying to start stuff with me and Margaret? Rachel was not expecting that. One thing about Marge, she's gonna be a Karen and she's gonna find a way to be a victim and gonna tell Teresa that it's undermining her character for Teresa to warn people. And I'm glad that Teresa stood on what she said. Yes, you are ruthless if you are on your bad side, and it's true. Everyone has caught the raft of Margaret. So I don't understand why she's acting dumb at this point in time. Like, you don't know what you're capable of, Margaret? Come on now. So everyone's drinking, having a good time. We all know New Jersey knows how to party. And Frank is being a thorn in Dolores' side, and he's telling her how upset he is that she's not staying at the shore house. His little girlfriend even comes over and was like, yeah, I'm hurt too. I said something. Like, y'all don't understand the principle of the situation that she has going on. And Dolores explains it to them, like, I thought Polly was going to be there and it would be weird for him to stay with Frank, which it is. Like, Polly and Frank don't know each other. Like let's look at the situation as if it was just a normal situation, not broadcasted for millions to watch. Who is going to be comfortable with their girlfriend staying with their ex-husband? Like, let's be for real. So the conversation starts to take a turn, and Frank is kind of like, I wouldn't say he's bashing Polly, but it isn't the greatest conversation about Polly. And Dolores is like, all right, and this is where I leave because the conversation starts to get stupid. Like, you're not about to talk about my man in front of me. Period. And you guessed it, Marge's friends are just as messy as her. So Jen Fezler decides to ask Teresa if it was an accident or an oversight that Melissa's mother wasn't invited to her wedding. Teresa says straight up, no, it's not an oversight. Because it's not. And I'm so glad production had the receipts and they went back and they showed where Melissa's mother and her sister were talking trash about Teresa on Twitter and on the show. So Teresa has a legit reason. And she said they had a history. She's going to leave it at that. She's not messy. She's not going back and telling them the things that was said. She's just like, hey, it was on purpose. Just know that. Period. Then Louis comes up out of nowhere and then he tells her, like, oh yeah, I apologize to Melissa's mother. Like, that's cool and everything, but why you ain't run that by Teresa? And you're a grown man, you can do what you want to do, but it's a tough situation where it's just like, okay, now you're acknowledging it, which means like they know that they weren't invited on purpose and he just doesn't want anything to do with it. And in this sense, you've been sticking by your wife's side. Continue to do that, Louis. Don't act out now. Ultimately, I just don't know why everybody is trying to bully Teresa into inviting people that she didn't want to invite in the first place. It's her wedding. The day that y'all renew y'all vows or decide to have an additional wedding, then you can control who you invite. But until then, her wedding, her guest list. So we still have Jackie walking around as a friend of for whatever reason because she doesn't excite the show or bring anything to the show. She pulls Jennifer aside and she's like, I really want you and Margaret to make up. But Jennifer shuts her down. Like, look, Margaret says some things that hurt me and my family. Like, we're reaping the repercussions now from what she said. But that's one thing that I can't really agree with Jennifer. Was Margaret wrong for bringing it up again? Yes, when no one knew about it. But she can't blame Margaret for her husband's actions. Like, take Margaret out of the equation, Bill still cheated. Those are just facts. And I think that Jennifer needs to realize that instead of trying to blame everyone else for what her husband did. Let me just say this. I like Danielle and she's a real one. First and foremost, I would have left that party too. I'm not going to stay where I'm not welcome. I got 6 people over here having a conversation about my life and refuse to include me in on it. No, you guys are too old to be acting like that. 40 and 50-year-old women playing high school and talking about this girl at a party while she just sits there. No, it's not right. And Jackie has this made up beef with Danielle and is trying to get everyone on her side. And it's like, nobody else had a problem about Danielle and her story with her brother until Jackie made it known. She keeps picking and picking at her, like versus what she was wearing and her approach to things and her hands and her. It's like, Jackie, you are barely supposed to be on the show. You are a friend of. Please don't disrespect the full time. And that's that. I wish like more people would have actually came in defense for Danielle, but obviously just looking at it, she don't need it. Danielle's gonna be one that can handle herself and she's gonna be a breakout star this season. I'm calling it now and I see it. Oh yeah, and I'm ready for next episode. I see Trey is back in full effect, cursing Jackie smooth out, and I'm here for it. Louis says some weird stuff, but I guess we'll address it next week.